It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Lake Erie Storm's assistant track and field coach, Coach Sarah Emily Woodward. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Very excited to be here.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college track and field?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was uh, probably about a junior when I really realized I had an interest in being a college coach. That mainly stemmed from my own collegiate experience as an athlete. Coach Molnar and Coach Brown were two coaches that I had throughout my 4 years at Austin Peay State University. And it was really like my junior year that I realized my kind of passion was being able to have the kind of impact that they had on my life and, guiding me and leading me. Coaches do a lot more than just the coaching, right? They help you just grow up, especially in your college years. So just the impact that Coach Brown and Coach Molnar had on my life, I really wanted to be able to help make that impact for others. So
What was that experience like for you as a collegiate athlete going to Austin Peay State?
it was really good. Uh, so we had men's cross country. So we had a guys team and then we had just women's track. We were all very close. We were definitely very competitive. My first 2 years there, we were nearly conference champions, so that was very exciting to be a part of. As far as kind of the culture and things like that, we really had a culture that maintained respect at the forefront for each other. And then from there, it was just really building each other up. So we were always supportive of one another, whether it was on the track or off the track. That's kind of the thing that our coaches told us, is that our teammates are going to be our biggest supporters while we're in college. And so we really embraced that and became, the true family aspect, which Coach Brown always said, family, they're going to tell you what you need to hear, and it might not be what you want to hear always. So we really embraced that and used it to be the team that we ended up being. So,
As a player, what was it like getting to represent them and putting on the uniform for them?
yeah, I think the biggest thing was it was like a daily reminder to myself that it wasn't about me. It was about something bigger. It was about more than just me. It was about all the women that I was out there with every day, whether it was doing a hard workout, whether it was lifting, whether it was, going and to a meet, anything like that. It reminded me every day that it wasn't about me. It was about everyone else out here with me. I think that's the biggest thing that you have to remind yourself when times get tough. And I tell my team that, like, when it gets tough, middle of a race, you have to remember that at the end of the day, your teammates are out here fighting for you just as you're fighting for them. And so that's got to be the number one goal, is just making sure that you always remember it's about something bigger than you, and your jersey really can signify that.
As a player, what was that transition like going from being a player to getting onto the coaching staff at your alma mater?
Yeah, so it was definitely different. I got to step away for a year when I was a GA, and then I came back to Austin Peay. So I was away for a year, came back, and it presented its challenges, right? You're leading. I was only away for a year, so I was leading athletes that I had been teammates with. But I will say they did a phenomenal job of embracing it and really embracing my training plan and things like that. So that made it easy. But I think the biggest thing that made it a smoother transition than it may have been in other circumstances is that my head coach, Valerie Brown, she really took the reins on empowering me and letting it become like what I wanted it to become as a distance program. So that was something that I really thank her for. She really showed me the ropes on, hey, this is how you lead a team. You kind of make this culture what you want it to be. And so through that, I was really able to learn a lot very fast that at other institutions, I might not have gotten that opportunity because Coach Brown and I already had a previous relationship when I was a student athlete. She was one of my coaches. So I think we already had built a relationship. So that was super helpful in terms of her feeling, like someone I already knew and I already, had leadership from. So I was able to really grow.
What were some of the things that you were able to accomplish as your alma mater as the assistant coach?
Yeah. So there was a few things. We had one of probably the best athletes I had was Michaela Smith. She podiumed at the OVC championship for the 800 meter quite a few times when I was there. We also got the distance medley relay school record while I was there. I scored a conference. And then I would say the biggest achievement that I got to be a part of. And again, I was just an assistant. I was not, leading the charge. Coach Brown and Coach Pride, I'll give a lot of credit to, but we did win a conference championship while I was on staff. So that was probably one of the most exciting moments for myself.
How was that experience like go to Oklahoma to be a grad assistant and learn at Oklahoma?
Yeah, so going to Cameron University, that was definitely a positive experience. It got me to step away. I feel like if you can step away from your alma mater and learn things in other areas, that's always a positive. So I was really able to gain some more knowledge out there and kind of bring it back to my alma mater to help change things in a positive way. It was an interesting task. So it was the first ever women's program. So I got to be a part of the first ever women's program. I was the first female coach that the program had. So that was definitely an interesting experience. I think the biggest thing that it taught me was that it definitely is not just coaching. Like I think we just see our coaches every day and it's, you're holding a stopwatch, you're writing down times, you're writing down workout plans. But that first year, you kind of learn the logistics and you learn all of the event planning that goes into it, all of the paperwork that goes into it. And that might not be those aren't the glorious moments, so to speak, but getting to learn that was something that definitely that first year was a big kind of 180 almost moment where it's like, oh, it's not just about writing workouts every day and doing training programs. There's a lot more that goes into the coaching than just that. So that was probably the biggest thing that I learned that first year.
What was that experience like coming to Lake Erie and being the assistant track and field coach and the head cross country coach?
Yeah, it's been amazing. So I basically came in. The program had been taken over shortly before I got in by our head coach, Coach Derek Stout. He had done a great job doing his best in those short few months to kind of turn the program around. He set me up for a lot of success when I came in as a result. So he had kind of already put in place those steps that were like really big culture changes, right? So we wanted to see, a culture that was based around communication, dedication, and then just mutual respect for each other. And so through the interview process, that's something that he had taken over. I think it was like in end of February, March, and then I was brought on the following July. And so that was something that like I didn't have to deal with. I didn't have to deal with the expectations because we had similar expectations. So he had already kind of ingrained those in the student athletes. So that was something that really helped me. And then from there, he has done a great job of empowering me. I've been really blessed in my coaching experience to be an assistant to wonderful bosses. So similar, to Coach Brown came in, he said, you're going to make the distance team what you want it to be. I trust you. And so I've had that opportunity. Obviously, he's been very great in guiding me when I do need that guidance, but he's also very empowering at the same time and allows me to kind of do what I think is best for the team. So,
How's that experience been like being the head cross country coach?
so I'm associate head, but yeah, he's definitely been able to, he's kind of given me full reins of like, where practices are, when they are, all of that. So I oversee pretty much all of distance. I make the schedule and all of that. It was definitely a little bit of, a change coming from the assistant title to associate head title. So that's basically, I think what it is the biggest thing that you learn is the higher up the title is, it's more paperwork, honestly. I feel like assistant coaches, you definitely get more time to actually do the coaching portion of things. Whereas when you get the associate head, the head coaching title, and you grow in that, a lot of it means, hey, you're monitoring academics even on a heavier scale. You are doing a whole lot of event planning. You're in charge of budget and all of that. So I think being associate head has really given me the opportunity kind of to see like the minor steps to get into a head coaching role one day, hopefully. But yeah, you can, it's really good just kind of getting to ease into it almost. So.
What does a typical game day competition look like for you on the track side versus the cross country side?
Yeah, so cross country, usually it's a lot shorter. Track is going to be, an all 2-3 day event, with cross, it's usually a half day thing. Cross will get in, sometimes it is an early wake up call. And so we have the athletes on vans and we're traveling at 6 a.m. For the most part during cross, but they're running, their meet by 9 a.m., 8 a.m., and then we're back home before lunch sometimes. So that's really nice. Whereas track, it's definitely transition. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more events, but it makes it fun. Not that cross country isn't fun. I love them both. But as far as track, that can be, a 2-3 day affair. And so usually it starts on, if it's a 2-day meet, it'll be a Friday and Saturday all day. And then if it's a 3-day meet, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But typically in terms of like the meet inning of itself, I enjoy track because, when you're there, there's always something going on. And I think this team specifically is very good at, they're not just sticking to, we're going to watch what's on the track. Our kids go and they watch each other. So they know, hey, if we don't have anyone running in this race, we're going to go watch throws or we're going to go watch jumps and things like that. So, and I think too, it really helps them learn and gain knowledge about their own sport that they might have not previously had. Something that is unique about track and field is that it is, almost a bunch of different sports within one sport. So again, the throwers, they're never going to do the same thing as the sprinters and the distance runners and things like that. So the meets are really an opportunity for the team to kind of see what is going on their own team that they don't see day to day because they don't practice together.
How's that like getting to coach the distance runners?
It's great. So I've been blessed with a squad that, again, I came in, they really bought into me. You always have your challenges, right? Like any new coach that comes in, you've got to build a culture of trust that might not be had day one. It's going to take some time. But out of this team, I've gotten a group that's super supportive of me. And they know vice versa. Like I'm going to be super supportive of them. We trust each other. They can come and talk to me about things. So that's been the biggest thing. And I think they know for me, my number one priority, and I talk about this in the recruiting process, is communication. If you can come to me, like I'm always going to have an open door, come to me, talk about, whether it's a personal issue, whether it's something with the training, whether it's, I want to get better in this area. What do I need to do? All of those things, just talk to me about it versus we're just assuming things and never talking about it. I never want, that to be something that's going on. So we always talk about communication has to be at the forefront. And I think just in terms of you're a part of some of the most formative years of their lives, and you're trying to help them not just grow as an athlete, but grow up as an adult. And so I think one of the things that the communication piece teaches them specifically is that it goes beyond just, hey, I'm communicating with my coach about how I'm feeling, but it's going to impact hey, when you leave here and you go get a career, you've got to be able to talk to your boss. You've got to be able to talk to your coworkers, communicate with them. And so that's always my goal, is leaving a place better than they found it. And so when they graduate, they know I know how to properly communicate with the people around me.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
So the powerhouses, we've got quite a few for Division II. Ashland and Findlay are heavy hitters in our conference. And so we go to Ashland a lot. We also have Hillsdale as well. Our conference is primarily all private. It's not primarily, it is all private school Division IIs. So it does create a little bit of a unique culture in terms of it's all high competition as well as high caliber academics. So the nice thing about it is we have a lot of really academically strong athletes, which is great. And then we also get out of that, high competition, especially with a school like Ashland. I mean, they won a national championship in track and field multiple times. They have had multiple Olympians. They've got Olympians on their current staff. They've always had Olympians on their staff. Like, it's something that being around that atmosphere really shows them that there is life beyond just what goes on at your conference championship.
What is that like getting to face them at home against teams like Ashland versus going to Finland or going to Slippery Rock?
Yeah, so it's definitely in terms of kind of where we prefer to compete, like you always have those, especially during indoor track, you always have those tracks that are kind of your favorite. Ashland has a very nice facility. And then I would say that in terms of when it comes to outdoor competition, it really just depends on weather. I feel like Northern Ohio is not ideal for weather. Most of your outdoor season, you're going to be spent in cold, rain, wet. Like, it's not going to be the most fun thing in the world. But you really get the opportunity to, in my opinion, it's one of those things where in the moment it is not the best, but it's one of those things that really creates memories. Like, you talk about, like, oh, do you remember that meet where it just monsooned the whole time and we ran, the 5K and it was pouring rain the whole time. It's one of those things that it's kind of like a team building moment almost. So yeah.
Can you talk about a course, the culture that you started to help to build for the Lake Erie program?
Yeah, the culture.
Mhm.
Is that what you got? Okay. So I would say the top three things that we really focus on as a staff to convey on our team is going to be, like I said, number one, communication. And then from there, it's really respect and dedication. I definitely take the mentality that many coaches will take in terms of, I would rather have a very hardworking athlete than the most talented athlete in the world. I don't want a waste of talent. I want somebody who's going to come in, they're going to work every day. And so that's always something that, from our standpoint, that we're looking for out of our student athletes. And then outside of that, one thing that we talk about with our athletes, and I think it's really embraced by them, and it's more when we talk to them about it, it's definitely one of those, we can preach at you all day that this is what we want you to do. But at the end of the day, it takes you embracing that culture and you kind of putting it into effect, because coaches can only do so much. And those two things are accountability and then family. I think, like I said, Coach Brown always, taught me that family is going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's what you want on a team, even though it might not be what you want to hear that day. Quit being negative. We need to get through this workout, things like that. And that piece is also the accountability. I always talk with recruits about, I want to know that when you guys go to Chipotle after a practice, that you always leave a positive representation of Lake Erie track and field and at the establishment, and never a negative one. So they know that that's always the expectation for us, is that no matter where they are, they're representing Lake Erie, cross country and track and field, and they have to hold that to a certain standard.
What are some of the things that you look at in those prospective student athletes, and what does that official visit process look like for those people?
Yeah. So, big things that I look for are they academically strong? I definitely want to know that at the end of the day, you're coming for an education, right? Like we got to be focused on the academic side of things. That's definitely one of my number ones is looking at their academics. And then number two is going to be character. I need to know that you have the things that we are looking for. And so what I really mean is, are you going to embrace the culture of communication, respect, and dedication? Are you going to be willing to hold each other accountable and things like that? So that's really what I look for, is someone that is going to make a positive impact on the program, make it a better place than when they found it, lift their teammates up, and knowing that, I think that's something that's mutual, right? Like you're going to have a bad day and your teammate's going to help you out and vice versa. And then as far as kind of what we do on our official visits, typically what we do is we start out with an admissions tour. Our admissions team does tours, and then they go back and they meet with them and they kind of give them a rundown of like, hey, based on your application, this is where you fall in the criteria for academics and things like that. And then from there, what we do is we take them over to lunch. What they do there is, primarily, my goal is to always give the student athlete an opportunity to be with the team just one-on-one, away from me, go hang out with the team, because at the end of the day, that's the majority of your time. That's who you're going to spend time with, way more than you'll ever spend with me. So I always have them go eat with the team by themselves. And then the family will come and sit with the coaching staff. We pull them aside so I can really get to know, like, what is your biggest goal for your child to get out of college experience? What is the biggest life experience you want them to learn? And really learning that, because if I can understand that, that's going to help me understand where the child is coming from and where their family, like what their goals are. So that's something that we really try to always make sure we're doing, is giving the athlete the opportunity to meet one-on-one with the team, ask the questions from the team perspective, where they don't feel like I'm hovering, and then also talk to the parents and really get to know the parents and where they're coming from. And because at the end of the day, their parents are probably the people that know them best at that point. So if I can learn from them, that's my best opportunity. So, but then from there, we bring them over, we show them our gear, and we have them do a little photo shoot. And then we talk to them just about coaching philosophy, the opportunities that we offer here, and all of that stuff. So,
As a coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that uniform for the first time representing Lake Erie?
Yeah, it's great. It's definitely something that, you recruit them for a year, you go and watch them at their high school races, all of that, and then you finally get to see them suiting up for, your team and all of that. And so that's really great. I think it's one of those things where it's a huge growing process for them. I think they're realizing, oh, okay, this isn't high school anymore. I've got to take it a little bit more seriously. And it's one of those things that all ties back into the accountability piece. And so when we're talking about, at the end of the day, you're held to a higher standard as a student athlete. You can't just be a regular student. You don't get to just do whatever you want, because at the end of the day, you get to wear that jersey on the weekends. And so that's what we kind of always talk about.
As a coach, what is it like seeing those seniors putting on that jersey for the last time?
Yeah, it's a great experience. It's something where it's almost a point of like reflection with them, and where it's like, man, you have come so far, and thinking about them as a freshman. And especially, I think one of the things that's fun to see is like, when they're a senior and they're qualifying for these events that their freshman year, they might not have ever qualified for. They might not have ever gone to this meet, because their freshman year, they weren't as good. And so it's thinking about how much they've grown, how far they've come.
What is that like, getting to see them as seniors going on and going into professional track, whether it's on the coaching side or competing professionally for a national team?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's definitely one of those things where, especially if they want to keep their interest in track and field, obviously you're going to probably talk to them a lot more than you would your students that go off to be nurses and teachers and things like that, which are all great professions. No matter who the student is, I love getting to see that, my biggest goal is, when they cross that stage, they know what they're waking up and doing the next day, right? They know, what their career goals are, what their desires are, what their dreams are at the end of the day. And that it doesn't just stop at college track and field. And so currently, we've got an athlete on our team, Harry Russ Hughes, and so he is looking into, his best options. He's had a few opportunities to be able to go run for Team GB and things like that. And so that's kind of as a younger coach, that's kind of my first taste of really getting to see what it's like at that level. Michaela Smith, she ran a few things for the Virgin Islands when I coached her at Austin P. And so just kind of getting to see that. I haven't had an athlete go pro yet, but definitely hoping I will have one here in the near future.
What are some of your future plans, and what are some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far?
Yeah, definitely wanting to see the program grow some more. And so that doesn't just expand to like roster size. I also want to get, have more athletes, have a better national presence at the national championship. Harry has done a phenomenal job of putting us on the map. He really has. But he's done that by himself for a couple years. And so he's definitely ready to have some more athletes there with him. And so a lot of our goals this year are to get more athletes qualified for the national championship. Also want to see our guys just do better at the conference championship and things like that. So it's kind of bringing in those higher caliber athletes to bring more attention to the program and things like that.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college track and field?
Yeah. So when you're going through your recruiting process, reach out to coaches. Do not be afraid to reach out to coaches. Coaches are always looking for opportunities to chat with student athletes. I think the biggest thing is to remember that coaches only have so many hours in the day, and most of us wear a lot of different hats. Just myself, I think I have 4 different titles on campus between, associate head coach, assistant coach, and then I'm also an assistant AD and the SWA. So there's a lot going on. I highly encourage recruits to reach out to coaches, like construct an email. That is something that always impresses coaches. Don't be afraid to do that. And then when you're going through the recruiting process, fill out the forms, fill out the applications, fill out the extra scholarships, all of that, complete it. That's something that just early on in looking for athletes that I think are going to fit the mold for this team specifically, over communicate, right? Like I'm big on communication. And so knowing that you're doing the things I ask you to do, whether it's doing your application, filling out extra scholarship, the NCAA eligibility center, whatever it may be, those are things that we really look for in the early recruiting process. But as far as once they're here, the biggest advice I can tell them is just buy-in. Like talk to your coach, communicate with them, but go buy into the program you're a part of, and don't stay stuck on either what went on at your high school, or maybe, the internet is a great thing, but sometimes it can be to our detriment. And so don't focus on what, if someone's coming to Lake Erie College, I don't want you coming in and telling me, well, Stanford's team did this, this, and this. We got to focus on what's going on here, what we have here, and what we're working towards here, right? So buy in your freshman year, and just make sure you really work on getting to know your teammates, because don't let the outside be a distraction for you.
What advice would you give those juniors transitioning into being seniors and leading the program?
Yeah, I would definitely tell them that I think a lot of student athletes that I found within, especially the programs that I've been a part of, they're great at leading by example. And this is a conversation that my coach, when I was in school, had with me, being a more vocal leader. And so again, it kind of all ties back into that accountability piece. Like, don't be afraid to call your teammates out and tell them an idea is dumb. Don't be afraid to call your teammates out and tell them they're being negative. And that might feel uncomfortable. It might feel uneasy, but just knowing that at the end of the day, you are a senior on this team. You've seen more than most of the team has. And so with that piece, be a leader by example, obviously, but become more of a vocal leader and embrace that, because a coach can't always be everywhere at one time.
What advice would you give those seniors that have aspirations of competing professionally?
Yeah, definitely would tell them focus on the running portion. I think that's the biggest piece of advice you can take, is like focus on what you're doing your senior year, and don't get so caught up in focusing on things that haven't happened yet, so to speak. Like, you got to worry about the running, and the other stuff will come. And I think for myself, just trying to figure out kind of how to help athletes when they are looking at going professional. That's the best piece of advice I've gotten from other fellow coaches that are more experienced than myself and have had multiple athletes go professional. And the biggest piece of advice that I've gotten from them is to tell their athletes that have the opportunity, you still have to focus on running well, and that has to be at the forefront of your brain. And so that's got to be the focus, and the main goal is performing well, making sure you're taking care of your body. I think the biggest thing that I've heard, just again, I'm not a professional athlete, haven't had an athlete go pro yet, but will hopefully will have one. But the biggest thing that I have heard from them is take the little things seriously. So the rehab, the eating, the recovery, all of that, take it very seriously, and just make sure that you're taking care of those things as well as the training, and still have those goals at the front.
What advice would you give those athletes looking to get into college coaching after their playing career?
Yeah. So definitely one of the biggest things I can say is, if you want to get into coaching, you have to start acting like you're already at that level. And by that, I don't mean take over the training or anything like that. Really, what I just mean is you have to start acting professional and like you're held to a higher standard than, just a regular student or another person on the team. So again, you have to prioritize, maybe I don't go out to a party, and maybe I'm just focusing on applying for GA ships, just getting in where you can. Also too, I think you can't be in the beginning, unfortunately, I don't recommend being super picky on where you get to the opportunity to go coach at. I think one of the biggest things that I learned early on when I was trying to figure out, how I got into coaching, what that looked like, what it entailed, was you can't just wait for the specific Division I offer that you want. You need to see what your options are and take one of them and just get your feet wet, no matter where it is. And then just remembering that when you are in that first position, just listen to your superiors, and like, don't ever have them ask you to do something twice. Like, do it the first time, get it done. And remember, like, at the end of the day, when you're just sitting there and you're learning, ask questions. Always ask questions, get that knowledge, but don't be afraid to ask them. And then, like I said, just making sure that, like, the biggest thing is your job as an assistant is always to make your head coach look good. Like, that's always, the number one thing is you need to make your head coach look good. And so a part of that is doing the things that they ask you to do. Do it the first time, ask questions. How can I be more beneficial? And so that's one thing that I think is always telltale of like a coach that really wants to be in coaching is, do they come to the head coach and say, hey, what else do you need? Or maybe your head coach hasn't told you to do something yet this week that you did 2 weeks ago for the team. So you say, hey, coach, do you need me to go ahead and order the food for our meals this week? Like, what do you want me to do? I'll take care of it. So take things off their plate is what I would say.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program app?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. It's under SAEM. So first 2 letters of my name, and then run. So Sam Run. And then our Instagram handle for the team is LECXCTNF. So
Thank you again, Coach Sarah Emily Woodward, for your info, and best luck in your future at Lake Erie Storm as the assistant track field coach.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Sarah, for your info, and best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.